जय हिंद। तो कैसे हैं आप लोग। तो आज हम है अगस्त 16। लेट्स स्टार्ट आवर जर्नी ऑफ आवर लाइव एक्सप्रेस, जिसमें हम द इंडियन एक्सप्रेस के ये सारे पेज नंबर कवर करने की कोशिश करेंगे। पेज 2, 8, 11 एंड 12। दोस्तों, एक बहुत ही खूबसूरत सा कोटेशन है कि शतरंज में वजीर और इंसान का जमीर जब तक जिंदा है बाजी कभी भी पलट सकती है। तो इन्हीं कोटेशन के साथ आज का दिन शुरू करते हैं। लेट्स स्टार्ट। तो आज है अगस्त 2023। जो पहला टॉपिक है वो है हमारा पेज नंबर 2 पे आ जाते हैं हम। $3 billion in 2014, आयुष सेक्टर सेट टू क्लॉक $24 billion this year, officials said. Let's see what's this. The Ayush, Ayurveda, Yoga and Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha and Homeopathy sector has seen exponential growth in production of medicines and supplements from just over $3 billion in 2014 to $18 billion in 2020 and is anticipated to clock $24 billion in 2023, according to Union Ayush Secretary Rajesh Kotecha. Kotecha said the WHO Global Traditional Medicine Summit, being held in Gujarat's Gandhinagar on August 17 to 18, will set the tone for future activities of the WHO Global Center for Traditional Medicine located at Jamnagar in the state. The summit is being co-hosted by the World Health Organization and India, which holds presidency of G20. According to Kotecha, experts from more than 90 countries will attend the event, which will be a platform for all stakeholders, policymakers, academics, researchers, and private sector participants to share best practices and evidence, data, and innovation on the contribution of traditional medicine to health and sustainable development. There is a huge response to Ayush based health and wellness centers, he told the Indian Express. At present, 7,000 such centers are operational, and data from states from January to December 2022 indicate that 8.42 crore patients have availed of the service. At the summit, the WHO will present emerging findings from the third global survey on traditional medicine. The complete survey will inform the development of WHO's updated traditional medicine strategy between 2025 and 2034, as requested by the World Health Assembly in May this year. Earlier, WHO had appointed 11 experts in traditional medicine, public health, and policy, including former UGC Vice Chairman Bhushan Patwardhan as co chair to its external advisory group to provide strategic and technical advice for the Med Traditional Medicine Summit. Contacted on email, Dr. Shyama Kuruvilla, WHO lead for Global Traditional Medicine Center and Summit, told the Indian Express that the WHO is working with its member states on standards and benchmarks for different traditional medicine systems and their evidence based in integration in the International Classification of Disease ICD. The ICD allows countries to count and identify their most pressing health issues, and it does not include, refer to, nor endorse any therapy. She pointed out that around 40% pharmaceutical products today have a natural product basis and landmark drugs derived from traditional medicines. This was about Ayush sector. Now we will go to page number 8. It's regarding the editorial page, in which we will see a simple topic: a slippery slope. Extreme weather events in the Himalayas are a warning. Ecology must be respected while planning development. These 2 lines you can easily use while starting your answer writing. Ecology must be respected while planning development. The large toll taken by cloudbursts and landslides in Himachal Pradesh is another sobering reminder to respect the Himalayan region's fragile ecology. At least 50 people have lost their lives as torrential rain pummeled the state in the past 3 days, making the already precarious hill slopes unstable. The toll is expected to rise as many more people are feared to be trapped under debris. These are not the first casualties this monsoon season. According to the Himachal Pradesh State Disaster Management Authority, higher than normal rainfall claimed more than 150 lives in the state between June 24 and July 2022. July 22. Relief has begun on a war footing, but its time measures are taken to prevent such large loss of life and property in the hills. Flood and landslides are not uncommon in the Himalayan region. The young mountains are geologically active and the region has also a long history of down slope movement of rocks and boulders. According to the ISRO's Landslide Atlas of India, all 12 districts of Himachal are susceptible to landslides. So you can get one point. There are 12 districts in Himachal which are susceptible to landslides. But the slopes seem to have become more unstable in recent years. According to the state's disaster management data, the number of landslides increased nearly 6 times between 2020 and 2022. Himachal's disaster management plan ascribes this to climate change and the increase in extreme rainfall events. It's correct that the average temperature in the Himalayas is rising faster than the rest of the country. There is also no doubt that short but intense bursts of rainfall have become frequent in the state, like in several other parts of the country. But ecology insensitive development has compromised Himachal's capacity to withstand inclement weather. In the past 10 years, the state has gone on road widening spree. 69 national highway projects have been approved, of which 5 are 4-lane highways. Roads and highways are important to the region's economic development, but such projects must be mindful of the area's ecological vulnerabilities. For instance, road expansion drives rarely factor in slope stability. There is very little planning on what to do with construction debris. Last year, the Himachal Pradesh High Court expressed serious concerns on the unplanned excavation of the hills and poorly executed construction of roads in the state. Early warning systems that alert people to impending landslides are at nascent stage in the country. This line, here I want to highlight one of my life experiences. When I was at IIT Delhi doing my masters, one of my colleague was doing research such that he was working on an algorithm in which the drone shots of the hilly areas will transform the data into with the help of algorithm into such results that we will be able to predict the degree of landslide in that area. He was working on that project and he got success, and in recent future we might see such algorithms which can provide those data. In Kangra, the EWS failed to alert people of a landslide in the first week of this month. Report to weather vagaries will require paradigm shifts and interventions at various levels. The Himachal tragedy should warn policymakers against delaying such endeavors. तो मेरा दोस्त जो था वो आईटी दिल्ली में उसने काफ़ी ड्रोन शॉट्स लिए थे, हैवी ड्रोन्स, नॉट छोटे वाले। उन लोगों ने उत्तराखंड के काफ़ी हिल्स को लैंडस्लाइड्स जहाँ पॉसिबल होते हैं उनको स्टडी किया था, एंड दे आर वर्किंग ऑन इट। इन नियर फ्यूचर हमें ज़रूर आईटी दिल्ली से एक ऐसा मिलेगा प्रोजेक्ट जिसमें कि हम ये प्रेडिक्ट कर पाएंगे कि किसी जगह की लैंडस्लाइड होने की प्रोबेबिलिटी कितनी है। और अर्ली वार्निंग मिलेगी तो लाइफ भी सेव हो सकते हैं। नेक्स्ट हमारा जो टॉपिक है वो है पेज नंबर 11 पर। लेट्स गो। पेज नंबर 11 पे हम देखने वाले हैं वीक डिमांड, लिमिटेड प्राइस हाइक्स वे ऑन इंडियाज इनकॉर्पोरेशंस प्रॉफिट ग्रोथ। It's been a dull earning season for India incorporation with the smaller increase in cost and a jump in other income savings the day. The top line growth has been muted, indicating weak demand and the inability of companies to hike prices beyond a point. Despite expenses having been reined in, operating profit margins OPM have seen only a modest expansion. These are the keywords which can be asked in your exams. While input costs are down at 13.4% year on year, employee costs have risen by the slowest in at least 4 quarters. The top line growth for a sample of 2,589 companies, excluding banks and oil marketing companies, grew just 2.6% year on year, a sign of firms' inability to push through volumes or price hikes or both. To try and protect their margins, companies have worked to rein in expenses. The softening commodity prices have helped lower costs. The ratio of raw materials to sales has dropped a sharp 246 basis points year on year. Consequently, net profits are up 7.5% year on year. Excluding other income, which has jumped 25% year on year, the growth in net profits would be flat. Contrary to expectations, interest costs have risen more or less in line with that in the previous 2 quarters. The profit picture changes dramatically if lenders and the oil marketing companies are included, with net profits up a good 44% year on year for a sample of 3010 companies. However, once again, it is the smaller growth in expenses together with a steep jump in other income that has lifted profits, since the top line has gone up by only 7.5% year on year. The fall in the raw material to sales for this sample has been a sharp by 634 basis points year on year. Earning growth has been propelled by domestic cyclicals such as BFSI companies and automobile manufacturers. With commodity prices, especially crude oil, on the rise and demand subdued, analysts have downgraded earnings estimates for several consumer oriented firms. In physical health, Maharashtra tops, Bengal, Punjab biggest laggards. Our next topic is on page number 11, which is about Jan Dhan Yojana. Jan Dhan Yojana, steady growth in new accounts, 10 million added in April-July. The no frills Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana PMGJDY bank accounts with an accumulated rupees of 2.03 trillion cash balance continues to rise steadily 9 years after its launch. So it has been 9 years after Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana has been launched. As many as 35.9 million new PMJDY accounts were opened in fiscal year 23 compared with 28.6 million in fiscal year 2022 and 38.7 million in fiscal year 21. With nearly 10 million new accounts opened in the first 4 months of fiscal year 24, the cumulative Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana accounts stood at 496.3 million by end July. In terms of cash deposits, however, the incremental deposits were just around 4,000 crore so far in the current fiscal, taking the total to rupees 2.03 trillion as on August 2, 2023. From rupees 1.99 trillion on March 31, 2023. In fiscal year 23, fresh accretion in Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana accounts was a record rupees 50,000 crore. Most of the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana accounts are with the public sector banks that have steered the financial inclusion drive. The number of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana accounts opened by public sector banks rose from 332.62 million in March 21 to 385.89 million in May 23, an increase of 16%. The government managed regional rural banks RRBs have a 21% increase in their Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana accounts to around 91 million in May 23 from 71 million in March 21. However, such accounts were just 14.07 million with private sector banks up 12% between March 21 and May 23. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana was launched on 28th of August 2014 to provide universal banking services by opening a zero balance bank account for every unbanked household. The main features of the scheme include one basic savings bank deposit, that is BSD account, to every unbanked adult, an overdraft OD limit of rupees 10,000 and a free RuPay debit card with inbuilt accident insurance cover of up to rupees 2 lakhs. ये जो एक्सीडेंट इंश्योरेंस कवर है बहुत लोगों को नहीं पता होता है कि उनके डेबिट कार्ड पे उनका इंश्योरेंस कवर भी होता है एक्सीडेंट का अप टू 2 lakhs. Transfer of assorted subsidies and SOPs to the beneficiaries through direct benefit transfer resulted in savings of rupees 2.73 trillion between fiscal year 15 and fiscal year 22. Right? These are some factual data. So we have covered this also. Next we will go to page number 12 where India and Russia's monsoon mission. Here you can see this. India and Russia's monsoon missions. What this is about? Let's zoom it. Luna 25 was launched weeks after Chandrayaan 3. So Russia's moon mission is Luna 25 and our mission is Chandrayaan 3, but is likely to land on the moon sooner. Why is it faster than the Indian mission? What scientific experiments will the two conduct on the lunar surface? Quite inquisitive, right? How the two attempts stack up? Here the comparison has been done between Chandrayaan 3 and Luna 25 of Russia. Chandrayaan 3 was launched on July 14, right? It will probably land on August 23. Injection orbit is like this. It will rotate the Earth, increase its orbital orbit, and then will approach the moon like this. Lunar transfer trajectory. Chandrayaan 3 has liftoff mass of 3,900 kgs. Landing site is at this altitude, the coordinates. Mission life is of 14 days, while Luna 25 of Russia has 1750 kg. Just see the weight difference. It will land at following coordinate. आस पास ही लैंड करेंगे ये यानी, बट इसका मिशन लाइफ 1 year का होगा. Lighter, you can see it's light. Luna 25 is lighter. Luna 25 does not carry a rover. Chandrayaan 3 has a rover capable of moving around 500 meters. So main difference in weight is due to the rover. While you can see frigate firing stage, okay, it will not. Luna 25 has this following trajectory. It just goes into its orbit and just in one shot it goes to the moon's orbit. आप देख सकते हो हम स्टेज बाय स्टेज अपने पहले यहाँ पे इंजन को ऑन ऑफ करके इसकी ट्रेजेक्ट्री को इंक्रीज़ करते हैं और फिर यहाँ पे लैंड कराते हैं, जबकि रशिया वाले सीधा एक ही शॉट में यहाँ पहुँच जाते हैं. दैट्स द डिफरेंस. Payloads. Chandrayaan 3 has a lander, as you can see, that's why its weight has increased. Rambha, to study properties of electrons and ions such as temperature and density. The lander has a name of Rambha. Then CHASTE, to study the thermal properties of the lunar surface near the polar region. Then we have a rover, which is APXS, to determine the composition of elements such as magnesium, aluminum, silicon, etc. Then LIBS, to determine the chemical and mineral composition of the lunar surface. While Luna 25 has ADRO and Adron LR, a spectrometer to study the surface only. Ares L detects charged particles in the polar exosphere. LISTBRPM, an infrared spectrometer, measures surface water and OH. The LASMA LR mass spectrometer will measure composition of soil masses. The PML detector will study dust in the polar exosphere. STSL is a panoramic and local imaging system. So let's study about this article. Russia's mission to the moon, Luna 25, is generating interest in India too. This is because the Russian lander is likely to touch down close to the lunar south pole days before India, beating the latter to the title of the first country to do so. The Russian mission was launched on August 10. It is likely to enter the moon's orbit by August 16 and attempt to soft land by August 21 or 22. India's mission cannot land before August 23, when it will be lunar dawn at the landing site. Why is it reaching the moon earlier? Although Luna 25 was launched last week aboard its Soyuz rocket, almost a month after the launch of Chandrayaan 3 on July 14, it will cover the 3.84 lakh kilometer journey within days. So distance between Earth and Moon, not distance to go into the orbits is 3.84 lakh kilometers. The Russian mission was able to follow a more direct trajectory, as I already explained you earlier. More direct trajectories for Russian mission towards the moon, owing to its lighter payload and more fuel storage. The lift-off mass for Luna 25 is just 1750 kg as compared with the 3900 kg of Chandrayaan 3. Chandrayaan's lander rover alone weighs 1752 kg, with the propulsion module weighing another 2148 kg. To make up for the lower fuel reserve available on the LVM Launch Vehicle Mission 3 module vehicle that launched India's mission, a more circuitous route was taken. Circuitous route, that staged route, as I showed you earlier. This is the circuitous route. After launch, the orbit of a spacecraft was increased in a series of maneuvers to help it gain velocity. The spacecraft was then slingshot towards the moon, reaching the lunar orbit nearly 22 days after it was launched. Over the next few days, Chandrayaan 3 will reduce its orbit and velocity around the moon in preparation for the soft landing likely to be attempted on August 23. Another reason Luna 25 can load before India is because lunar dawn at its landing site is earlier. One lunar day is equals to 14 Earth days. Just for your knowledge. With the payloads powered by solar panels, landing at the beginning of a lunar day ensures the experiments get full 14 Earth days. How do the missions differ? Apart from being lighter than the Indian mission, Luna 25 does not carry a rover. Chandrayaan 3 has a rover capable of moving around 500 meters. The Russian lander has 8 payloads, mainly to study the moon's soil composition, dust particles in the polar exosphere, and most importantly, detect surface water. The Indian mission also has scientific instruments to study lunar soil and water ice. The location near the southern pole was chosen because of the presence of craters that remain in permanent shadow. increasing the likelihood of finding water ice. The lander will carry 4 experiments on board: the radio anatomy of moon-bound hypersensitive ionosphere and atmosphere (RAMBHA). RAMBHA is an acronym: the radio autonomy of moon-bound hypersensitive ionosphere and atmosphere, has a Langmuir probe used to study properties of electrons and ions such as temperature and density. It will study these properties near the surface of the moon and how they change over time. The Chandra's surface thermophysical experiments, Chandra's surface thermophysical experiment, these are acronyms, these are not words. We'll study the thermal properties of the lunar surface near the polar region. The instrument for lunar seismic activity, instrument for lunar seismic activity ILSA, will measure the lunar quakes near the landing site and study the composition of the moon's crust and mantle. The laser retroreflector array LRA is a passive experiment sent by NASA. LRAs are optical instruments that act as a target for lasers and can be used for precise tracking by spacecraft in lunar orbit. As per NASA, such makers can also be used for precision autonomous navigation and landing future missions. There are 2 scientific experiments on the rover: the laser induced breakdown spectroscope LIBS, laser induced breakdown spectroscope, will determine the chemical and mineral composition of the lunar surface. The alpha particle X-ray spectrometer APX will determine the composition of elements such as magnesium, aluminum, silicon, potassium, calcium, titanium, and iron in the lunar soil and rocks. The main difference, however, is that India's mission is built to last only one lunar day, that is 14 Earth days, right? This is because it does not have a heating mechanism to keep the electronics safe from the extreme cold during the lunar night. The Russian mission will work for a year, meaning it has a heating mechanism as well as a power source other than solar panels. Is India in the race to land humans on the moon? Don't you want to know? It was the discovery of water molecules by India's Chandrayaan 1 in 2008 that has propelled another race to the moon. The US and China have plans to take humans to the moon again, a first after the Cold War era. Although India, with its limited resources, has caught up with countries with more advanced space agencies, there is still a long way to go before it can send humans to the moon. When it comes to send humans to the moon, the US and China are in the lead. The 2 countries and Russia have succeeded not only in landing but also carrying out samples return missions. India is yet to announce a sample return mission, although planning for a 4th mission to the moon with Japan as a partner is underway, said Ajay Lele, Senior Fellow at Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. Lele said India needs to first achieve human space flight before sending astronauts to the moon. This is our Gaganyaan mission. We are talking about our Gaganyaan mission. Right? Then we will go to page number 12, which is here itself. We will see about the RICO Act. The word means, what is RICO Act? The anti-racketeering law enacted to prosecute mafia bosses, now used against Trump. It's a world news, okay? Criminal charges has been filed against former United States President Donald Trump in a Georgia state court include allegations that have violated an anti-organized crime law known as RICO that is more expensive than its federal counterpart. What is RICO? US lawmakers passed the Federal Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization. RICO, it's an acronym for Racketeer Influenced Corrupt Organizations Act in 1970 to battle organized crime, notably the mafia. Subsequently, most US states enacted similar laws with various changes. The main requirements under the federal RICO law are at least two underlying crimes and participations in a criminal enterprise over a long period of time. Georgia's RICO law, under which Trump has been charged, does not require criminal enterprises to be long running and lists nearly 50 underlying crimes that qualify as racketeering compared with 35 under its federal counterpart. Defendants who are found guilty of Georgia RICO charges face between 5 and 20 years in prison. The federal law has the same maximum but does not have a minimum. How RICO typically used? The mafia in the US has been largely dismantled and RICO's application has been broadened to many other types of organized criminal activity. Prosecutors have applied the law to all sorts of groups that they characterize as criminal enterprises, including Wall Street banks and traders engaged in market manipulation. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis, an elected Democrat who brought the charge against Trump, used the law to prosecute more than 2 dozen Atlanta educators for allegedly scheming to cheat on standardized test scores in 2014. She is DA Fannie Willis who brought the charges against Trump. Why are prosecutors using RICO? RICO was originally conceived as a tool to go after mafia kingpins who kept their hands clean by parking ill gotten gains in shell corporations and leaving the dirty work to the underlings. The law does not require prosecutors to prove that defendants directly engaged in criminal activity, just that they were part of a larger organization that did. That means prosecutors would not necessarily have to prove Trump personally broke the law but coordinated with others who did. What are the risks of using RICO? RICO cases are inherently more complex because prosecutors must first prove the existence of a criminal enterprise. The Trump indictment names an additional 18 co defendants, including Trump's one time lawyer Rudy Giuliani, his former chief of staff Mark Meadows, and lawyer John Eastman. Prosecutors will need to prove that Trump and his co defendants work towards a common criminal purpose, which is not always as straightforward as proving an underlying RICO crime. So we got to know about the RICO Act of US. Here is another one. With Section 377 gone, why some fear Maine might lose protection against rape. Section 309 removed, but attempt at suicide is still punishable in some situations. This one is about two archaic provisions of the Indian Penal Code and what the proposed Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita says. So this topic is still under process, so it's better to cover when it's finally concluded, right? So thank you so much guys for your patience and listening to me and doing reading with me live with our live express. Keep learning, keep inquiring. Okay? Thank you so much.